were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the Scriptures might have hope. All right, so there's a lot in that verse, and we'll get there as we're studying through Romans. But the whole Scripture is important for us. We need to take the time to learn that. All right, one other announcement that I have. I need to do a very scientific survey. So I need to know, we order a calendar every year, and it's just this kind of calendar, has Keystone Baptist at the bottom, and we usually get a couple hundred of them, and you hand them out and use them. And last year, the guy who ordered them read like the first 4 or 5 they were sayings, and then when I got them here and put them out, Carol Pollard came and said, "Did you read the sayings?" I said, "Oh yeah, sort of, most of them." And you get toward the back, and there was one from Buddha, and I forget a couple of other, I don't even remember who it was. And so we couldn't use them last year because I didn't read all of the sayings, and so that won't happen again. But I need to do my scientific survey tonight, so you have a couple of options. One would be, don't raise your hand yet, I really like these, and if you stop getting them, I'll probably stop coming to church. It's that important to me. Like, I'm just, going to withdraw my membership, forget it, never coming again. I really, really like the calendars and want to get them. Then there's the second one where, I take them because they're here and I think they're good. Then the third one would be, I don't think anybody really uses calendars anymore, and I don't know why you insist on being an old person and ordering those. So how many would be in the first category where you say, I just really like the calendars and I use them? All right? Okay? All right, we got most, and if you see those hands, most of those hands are people, in that. That would be what my mom and dad use it for, all right? So, okay. How many would be in the category of, they're kind of cool, I use them because we have them, and there are still some people that do use them, all right? You got a couple there, all right. And how many are like, I don't even know why you'd order them because it's on my phone right there. Okay, all right. Okay, so I need to order 10 calendars. All right, that does help me actually to know whether it's something that we want to invest in. They're not really that expensive, and so it's not something that kills us to get them, and so I don't know if they're worth it or not. But the calendar companies call me, and they assure me they are. So, yeah, it's hard to believe. Okay. We're gonna get to our Bible study a little bit later, but we have actually 2 of our missionaries with us tonight. Rachel Langendorfer is here, and also David Minnick is here, and he's on his way to renew his passport and just stop by this evening. And so we've recently taken them on. And so I've asked him just to give a greeting as well. And so I think I'm going to have David come first. That might be a little bit easier, and then if you can get the PowerPoint ready. But Rachel is here as well. So come on up here and just give us an update on how things are going for you.
Well, good evening. I should tell you why I'm here first. 2 reasons, because we were here back in July 14th, and did a missions presentation here, and you all received us very warmly, and additional evidence of that is that you've gotten behind us, and we really appreciate that. And with your support now, we're somewhere between 25 and 30% of our support, which is, I think we're doing pretty well. We've only been traveling on deputation about 3.5 months full time. The rest of this year we've been having a baby and getting him ready to travel again. But we are on the road now. We are up in over in Ohio, and visiting several churches over there. Our calendar is pretty much full to the end of November with meetings, and I am just on my way to D.C. Stopped in here because we had that meeting. As I said, I got to know Pastor Wright. He offered housing, and so right outside D.C. is a great place to stop for the night, and I'll go early in the morning and need to go to the Australian Embassy and renew my passport. But thank you for your prayers. We're doing really well. People are very excited about our ministry, And the Lord's given safety, I think spirit-filled ministry to each church that we visited, and that's a result, an answer to your prayers. So thank you, and please continue. I apologize, I emptied my briefcase out to try to get everything in it that I needed for my trip, and that meant I took out my prayer cards. So I don't have any, but if you would like one, I will be glad to mail the church as many as people would like to have them. So let me know. I'll send you a stack of 10 or 50, depending on how many people want it. So thank you.
Very good, and they were a blessing to us when they were here, and I always enjoy that. We go back and talk about it with the men and our ladies when they meet, and there was just a real excitement about their ministry. And so besides that, I want to visit Australia, so it works well. All right, now Rachel is here, and she's not that far from Australia, kind of, yeah. Same trip, yes, yeah. But she's in Papua New Guinea. And when she's back, it's always good to just renew acquaintance with her, and it reminds me of another just really quality lady, and I've appreciated talking with her, and she gave us a personal update on her ministry last night, and so I'm glad for you to have the opportunity to hear some things from her as well. So Rachel, come on up. And
You need to lift that microphone up closer to her.
okay. This is forward. It's the one that's worn off. Okay.
All right. Well, good evening. It really is a joy to be with you all tonight. And I really need to look back at my list to see exactly what date I was here when I was presenting on deputation, but I think it's been about 4 years. So, all those little kids that were like in second grade or now 6th grade and so forth. So I want to say another hearty thanks for you all and your support. Both through your prayers and through your financial support. I was looking back over my financial stuff recently and really want to say thank you even for increasing support recently. And I'm a little remiss that I didn't get a thank you note for that increase in support. I was having some I was just kind of out of the loop for a while in Papua New Guinea. But thank you so much for your faithful giving and your faithful prayers. And then one more thank you for your work on the Prophet's Chamber. It is beautiful. And it's been exciting to speak with many of you about that and how the Lord has used it even as a unifying factor with the church as you have worked together and seen the Lord bring that project together. So thank you there. We'll just give you a bit of an update, not a huge amount about the country, but more about some of the ministries that have taken place over the last couple of years. Papua New Guinea is just above Australia, so Pastor Wright, if you do want to come visit both families, the Minnix, and then come and visit me in Papua New Guinea, that would work very well. The size of Papua New Guinea is about the same landmass as California. The population is pretty similar to actually Virginia. 8.8 million people and very rural. It's like 82% of the people live in very rural settings and truly live off the land, live off of their gardens. Just one thing about the culture and the languages is there's a lot of variety because there's between 600 and 800 different tribal languages. So what unifies people is the trade language of Melanesian Pidgin. And just an example of how people truly live off of their gardens and the variety of produce. I call them part-time vegetarians, and they do eat meat, but it's not every day. It's more on special occasions. And this would be more traditional cooking, truly in the ground. It's like a big pressure cooker with greens and sweet potatoes and taro and different things like that. So. The road systems I found rather interesting, some statistics for comparison's sake. Now, we are talking about paved, and we say that in quotation marks, whatever paved might mean. Truly, their paved roads are just 1% of the mileage of paved roads in Virginia. And then there are the bush roads. And because there is rain about 8 to 9 months out of the year, we do have a lot of water and mud and slickness. So we are very appreciative. My group of missionaries, in 2014, an airstrip was opened, and it just has made what had gotten to be slightly improved and gotten to be about a 5-hour drive to go to town and get supplies is now about a 12-minute plane ride. And that is our airstrip. Being put to use. It was rather wet on that day, so it was a bit of a bumpy landing. This is the ministry team that I'm working with. The senior missionaries on the right are the Bourbons, Michael and Janice, and their 3 sons are all adults and have finished college. Next, you'll see Belinda Richter. I need to back up, actually. The Bourbons, Mr. Bourbon really does the majority of the preaching ministry and so forth, and his wife works with children and some ladies' ministries as well. Next, Belinda Richter. She's one of the single ladies there and my next-door neighbor. One of her unique ministries is she's been doing literacy for many, many years, and that, of course, is super important in a country where a large percentage of the adult population do not read. She does ladies' ministries. She also does religious instruction in some of the local schools, and she's a physical therapist, and one day a week she'll come over to the clinic and work. So she has quite the variety. Then there's me. After me is Cynthia McGuire. She's another nurse practitioner, and she's working with me in the clinic. After her is a young lady who was an intern this past summer. And then in the pink shirt, Lenita Losi is another single lady, and she works in a Christian school. And in a little bit, I will mention another ministry the Lord's opened up for her short term, and it is another literacy ministry, but in a faraway village. The tall man in the back is another one of those interns. We had 2 this past summer, and they were excellent to work with and very, very hardworking. And then the final on the left is the Crane family, Matt and Rebecca, and their 2 children. And their main ministry is overseeing a small Christian school. And in a little bit, I'll show you a picture of one of the young men who made it through the 8th grade. And one of their main burdens was to have just good godly influence so that somebody could eventually be even a church leader or a wife to a church, to a pastor. And I know with you all working with a Christian school, that might be a burden on your hearts too. So, in fact, this is Sam, and he's the one I was referring to. He feels the Lord is leading him to full-time Christian work, and he has been for at least a year working alongside Mr. Bourbon, training him, and then doing different church ministries, and often takes initiative just to go to a certain area and preach the gospel in a market. He also does religious instruction for the local high school, which is about an hour and a half walk away. And then the other national leader that I would appreciate your prayers for is Brother David, and he is married with 3 children, and he works in the church that's about 2 hours away. So there's 2 church plants going on. Ibai is where our houses are. Kilau is about 2 hours away, and he's a very mature man. With life experience and time on the mission field, I have realized more and more not to take for granted people that seem to be stable, and people can fall away, and it's been a bigger burden on my heart to pray, not only for the Lord to call new leaders, but also for the Lord to protect these men. And I would appreciate you to join in prayer for these men, as Satan has so many ways of attacking godly men. The clinic ministry is the majority of where I spend my time, and we work in the clinic Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. 3 days are for general population, Fridays for our prenatal clinic. And I just have to say, it was such an answer to prayer when the Lord provided my coworker, Cynthia McGuire. She's been working with me since February of 2018. And we work well together, and it's just been a great blessing to have increased time for stopping and slowing down and talking more about spiritual things with our patients. Just a few clips of things we do in the clinic, including emergency stuff and sewing and just general sick visits. One of the sections of our care that is a big percentage is really taking care of ladies and children. And some of these statistics that you can see on there is really high rates of mortality for moms delivering babies and for children within a year of being born. And so it just gives a little glimpse into the importance, actually, of our work on the physical level, but even more so on the spiritual level. And really, through working with ladies and with their babies, and then also the prenatal ladies, we have seen probably our biggest spiritual fruit. And this particular lady brought her twins over and over and again. They were very, very malnourished, and they came into us as 3-month-olds, but they were super, super underweight. And she walked 2 days, she and her husband, just to come and get care for them. So she heard the gospel many times along with her husband. And this lady in the purple, her name is Frida, and Beta, the lady on the other side, led her to the Lord through the clinic ministry. She came and she heard the gospel, and then Beta started doing Bible studies with her, so it wasn't immediate. But down the road, she became more and more clear about the gospel and made a profession of faith. And Beta continues to follow up with her and disciple her. Having a coworker in the clinic has freed me up too, to have 1 day a week to meet with ladies just out in the community and do a Bible study, basically creation to Christ. And one of my burdens was just to reach out into the community, because there were ladies I knew who would probably not even step foot into the Baptist church. So we either meet out in one of the big houses or outside on a tarp if it's a sunny day. This has been a blessing, and have nearly completed everything. One of my coworkers has been helping while I've been gone, and just looking forward to reconnecting with these ladies when I go back, which will be in early November. This last, this part, I just don't want you to misunderstand. Deaf ministry does not mean we have an official deaf ministry. It's more like something we're examining and praying about. But we did have opportunity to get some deaf people together through their connections. People we knew in the church who brought a friend or brought a family member, and there were 8 deaf people. And some of the burden about reaching the deaf is there's not in the village anything but homemade sign language. Now, there is the process of developing a true PNG sign language, but at the moment it's just in the big towns. And so the Lord is just giving us step-by-step some more wisdom as to how to reach these people. We would appreciate your prayers. And it may work out next year for a man to come and visit who has done mission trips to reach deaf people in other cultures. So we would really appreciate prayers for that. And this is the group afterwards. It was very exciting because Sam was burdened too, and Sam, the young man I referred to earlier, would just use his own hand gestures, some of the homemade talk plays, or I'm sorry, I'm using pidgin. Some of the homemade sign language, and lots of pictures and different illustrations, like a really heavy backpack and clean and dirty, things like that. And just really seeing the intent looks on the faces of some of the people who came was very exciting. Last year, we held a first youth camp, and there was over 200 teens who came. Just an exciting thing to see, and a little bit different than camping stateside, but of course the same major things, the preaching, of course eating, but eating a little bit differently than here. That lasted for about a day and a half. And more importantly was the spiritual food that people were receiving. And there was quite a few who made professions of faith or decisions to follow the Lord. I'm heavily involved in the Sunday school ministry too, and kind of overseeing some of the national Sunday school workers and just providing curriculum to them and getting them together, encouraging them and so forth. And then sometimes I am teaching as well. And then the village of Amia has opened up, I'd say, within the last year. About a year ago, in September, had the opportunity to do a medical mobile medical clinic. This village was about an hour's drive and then about another 5 hours walk to reach. And a team of us went, and several men carried the different medicines, and Mr. Bourbon preached several times, and there was just a hunger and a very attentiveness of the people there, and very hungry. So it was very exciting to see something just opening up, and I haven't been back, but since then, the national worker, Brother David and Mr. Bourbon and Brother Matt Crane, all have been taking turns. Every second week, somebody goes and preaches. They go for Saturday and preach and just answer questions for these new believers, and then continue to see others trusting the Lord. But these are just some of the pictures on the way there of the trail, and it's really the end of the road. And the believers have put up a very basic meeting place with a little tarp over the top, and even when there's not a preacher, they'll come together and pray. So it's very exciting to see the work that's going on there. And this is where my coworker, Lenita, will go. She'll stay a week, teach literacy, and then she'll come back to our village for a little while. And so she's really helping the adults to learn to read there. And then my last little note to pray about is the teenager that's pictured here, the taller girl, is named BG. And I've had a friendship with her as well as her mom for a couple of years now. Well, this past summer, things got even a little bit closer, I would say, as my intern came and just made a really close friendship and connection with her, and was able to speak a little bit in Pidgin with her, but BG also speaks English through her education. And my intern Jubilee had opportunities to give the gospel to BG and also invited her to church. Now BG is from a Seventh-day Adventist background, so she was used to going to church on Saturday, and it was a big deal actually, like in her community, for her to even set foot on a Sunday in a church. And the Lord just has done a work, and since I came back, my coworker Belinda started Bible studies with her, and she has professed faith in the Lord and really shown evidence of clear understanding. So I would appreciate your prayer for this young lady, that she would stand strong, and also that the Lord would use her to reach others in the Seventh-day Adventist community, really a works-based religion. And so just a few prayer requests, just for maturity, for national leadership, for those that exist, and for others to be called, for the growth of BG and others in the Seventh-day Adventist Church to be saved, for continued fruit from the clinic ministry. I would appreciate prayers as my coworker Cynthia feels the Lord is calling her to full-time work in Papua New Guinea. And so that's exciting, and she will soon be returning to the States and doing her deputation. So while she's gone, she's going to definitely be missed, and I would appreciate if you would pray that I could have a nurse come and work with me during that time. And then finally, pray for the growth of believers in this new village of Amia. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you, to come and visit, and just thank you again for your faithful prayers and support in the ways that you bless your missionaries.
She's headed downstairs in just a second, but any questions you want to ask before she goes tonight? Yes, sir.
Because literacy is such an issue, is there an actual translation in the native tongue for Scripture?
There is scripture in the Melanesian Pidgin, and there is a complete Bible. There's a different translation that has the New Testament. So we praise the Lord that we did not have.
All right, anything else? Good question. Okay, great. We'll take the time afterwards. She'll be around, and so if you want to talk to her a little bit more, it's a fascinating ministry that she has, and a great opportunity. And then so for Rachel or for David, make sure you learn about the ministry that they have. And do remember, David is going back and will be planning a church. And what's the name of the town you're hoping? Brisbane, okay. And then he also has a real burden for training some of the nationals there in leadership. And that was one of the things that we really have a burden with him about, is just seeing some of their own national people trained in order to take the leadership in the churches. And that's one of the things that's really important. And so pray for them as they continue deputation and move on. All right, I knew that we would have a little shorter time tonight, and so I'm going to take just a minute and deal with something that we were looking at in Romans 9 on Sunday. And if you will remember, the title of the message was Grounded by God's Immutability. So what does immutability mean? Or does immutable mean? Unchangeable, yeah. And the reason that we use immutable rather than simply use unchangeable, they're very similar, but the idea of immutable means that it's incapable of being changed. That there's no possibility that you could change it. And so when we say something's unchangeable, it's still kind of in our minds, well, sure, you could change it, but immutability means that it's part of the character, it's part of something that takes place. And so in Romans 9, you're coming to a point where you're talking about God's sovereignty, and you're talking about the spiritual history for the Gentile people, and God's unchangeableness, His immutability, is a big part of the discussion. And so I want you to think about that for just a couple of minutes tonight, and we'll go through some things rather quickly. If you were taking a seminary course on this, you would go in a lot of depth on it, but we don't need to do that. I want to get to the end where we say, okay, how does this make any difference in my life? I mean, why do I need to know that God is unchangeable? What difference will it make on a daily basis for me? And there is an answer to that. And so we'll just say the what and the why. What is immutability? What does the Bible say about it? And then why do we need to know that? And so we'll get to both of those questions tonight. Let's begin with Malachi 3, verse 6. And so go to the Old Testament right at the end of it, and you'll find the verse that we're building upon here. Malachi 3, verse 6. And then can I have some people do this for me while we're looking that up as well? Who would look at up Numbers 23:19? Do I have a volunteer to do that? Eric, okay. And 1 Samuel 15:29. Ron, could you get that one? All right. Isaiah 46:9 through 11. Shawnee, okay. And we'll stay over here. Ezekiel 24:14. Okay. All right. And then we'll all go to James 1:17. So these will be some Old Testament verses. But notice Malachi 3:6. It's a very simple verse. It says, "For I am the Lord, I change not." And so here is clearly a statement. Therefore, you sons of Jacob are not consumed. Here's the reason that you're not consumed: because I don't change. I am the Lord, I don't change. All right, so let's look at these other verses as well. Numbers 23:19. Eric?
God is not a man that he should lie, neither the Son of Man that he should repent. Hath he said, and shall he not do it? Or hath he spoken, and shall he not make it good?
Okay, so here's a verse that says, if God said it, He's going to do it. Is he supposed to repent? Now, I understand there are some other passages that say God changed His mind. We'll actually cover that in just a second. All right, 1 Samuel 15:29.
And also the strength of Israel will not lie nor repent, for he is not a man that he should repent.
Okay, so here again we have that God is not going to repent. He's not going to change His mind about things. Isaiah 46:9 through 11.
Remember the former things of old, for I am God and there is none else. I am God and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, My counsel shall stand and I will do all my pleasure. Calling a ravenous bird from the east, the man that executeth my counsel from a far country. Yea, I have spoken it, I will also bring it to pass. I have purposed it, I will also
Okay? My counsel shall stand. Here's what I've said. I'm going to do that. He said, I'm not going to change. All right, Ezekiel 24:14.
New American Standard Version.
Okay?
I, the Lord, have spoken. It is coming, and I will act. I will not relent, and I will not pity, and I will not be sorry. According to your ways and according to your deeds, I will judge you, declares the Lord God.
Okay. He said, I've set down the standard, and that's what you have to meet. And over, you could find verses in the Old Testament that talk about the fact that God has said, here's who I am, and I'm not going to change that. Now, there's some things we could talk about in that, but this is the premise that God himself never changes. Now, go to the New Testament, and let's all look at James chapter 1, verse 17. If you find Hebrews, you're in the ballpark. So James 1:17. James 1:17, and in the King James it says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. All right, now, we need to ask the question, what is shadow of turning? What does he mean when he says shadow of turning? Anybody want to venture a guess? Carol?
Not even a hint of turning.
Okay, not even a hint of turning. Okay.
Could it refer to a sundial?
Okay, you're in the right ballpark. All right. Yeah.
Shifting.
Okay, shifting. Okay, the movement. All right. Anybody else? I'm going to throw your idea out there. I promise I won't shoot it down that hard. Okay. I looked this up today, and I've studied this before. I have enjoyed studying James. But it's actually talking about the sun. And when we think of our sun, we think of something that's very steady and secure. But the truth is, from our perspective, the sun can be eclipsed. It actually, as we watch it, it seems as though it moves and it casts shadows. It rises and sets. Now, we know that actually the earth rotates, but that's the way that we speak. And it appears as though it disappears. It appears as though it's gone. And so, if you study astronomy, you know that it comes out of one tropic, enters another at certain seasons, and so that's why we get the nice fall weather that I'm excited about. And, our sun, while it is something that's wonderful, to us it seems to disappear. And what he's saying in this verse is that God is light. He is light itself. As a matter of fact, the Scripture says that God is light, and in Him is no darkness at all. And so there's no darkness, there's no change in Him, nor anything like it. There will be no shadows. He doesn't rise and set. He is always the same. And so God is unchangeable in His nature. His perfections, His purposes, His promises, His gifts, everything about Him is always exactly the same. So when you look at that verse 17, it says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from, and here's how he describes God, the Father of lights, with whom is no variation. The King James says variableness. The New American Standard just says variation. There's no variation in Him. Neither shadow of turning. There's no shifting shadow. He is the one who is always consistent, always the bright light, always exactly as He ought to be, or as He declares Himself to be. And so when you look at this, you realize that there are a number of things that we could conclude when we're talking about the fact that we serve a God who is immutable. He's unchangeable. Let me throw a couple of things up here that'll stir your thoughts a little bit. God is eternal, and He exists outside the constraints of time. And so as time progresses, sometimes we feel like we need to change. Things happen, and so we have to adjust to them. God doesn't do that. One of the things that really blows your mind is, can you understand the concept of eternity? Can you really grasp eternity? You think you can do that? How long does eternity last?
We can't measure it.
See, even my question tells us that we struggle with it. Because when I ask how long, I've just put a constraint on it. We can't measure it, though. That is a correct answer. We can't even conceive of it, because even in trying to explain it, we think of it in terms of time. And so we don't understand that. God doesn't have that. And so He doesn't react to things as they happen, when they happen. Here's another thing, and this is kind of these other two are things that are good philosophical statements. His immutability is actually necessary to His perfection. If God is perfect, then He cannot need to change. So He doesn't need anything. God doesn't have this list of things He would like to have. In our lives, we have all of these things that we would like to have, whether it is material things, or does anybody have a bucket list? You have a bucket list? I didn't actually make one, but there are all kinds of things I could put on my bucket list. But there's nothing that God wants. There's nothing that He needs, and so He can't be better. And if God were to lose something, if He were to change and lose something, He wouldn't be perfect any longer. Therefore, He can't change for the worse. And so this is, again, more of a philosophical statement, but immutability, absolute unchangeableness because of His nature, is necessary to His perfection. Now here's the third thing. It's also related to His omniscience. Omniscience means that He knows all. So the fact that God knows everything, when somebody here changes their mind, it is often because new information has come, or light to light, or because the circumstances have changed and require a different attitude. And so you have new information that causes you to adjust. And so you have a different action or attitude because you've gotten new information. The fact is that God can't learn anything new. There's nothing new that comes to Him. God is not evolving. He's not growing in His knowledge. And this becomes important because there are some philosophies out there right now that say that God He's watching what happens and He's adjusting as the earth kind of goes, that He doesn't really know what's going to happen in the future. He just adjusts to it as it happens. Well, that's not the God of the Bible. If you go on, there were a couple of these verses that we read that talk about the fact that God changes His mind. But when you study those, you begin to realize, and this is part of number 3, you can go to Exodus 32 or 1 Samuel 15, God changing His mind, it's simply describing a change of dispensation, or the way He's dealing with people, His outward dealings toward man. And so it isn't really that God is changing as we would think that He's changing His mind. He's chosen to act differently toward man. And there's a whole other subject that you could study. But now, here's really the thing that I want to get to tonight. And I just want you to take this with you this evening. God is unchangeable, or He's immutable. We understand what that is, that His character is that He can't change. It would philosophically destroy God if He were immutable or changeable. So He can't change. So that's the what. But why is that important? What does understanding the immutability of God do for you on a practical level? So how would you answer that? What are some things? This?
We can depend upon Him. Trust.
Absolutely, yeah. What's that? Embolden your faith. Absolutely. Okay. I've only put 2 things down, but Shaker got the first one. And that is that God is our anchor in this world, and it's a world of constant change. You know, everything around you is going to change. But here's the one thing that is different for a believer than for people who are lost. And this is what should give us the mental stability more than any other group. And that is that God doesn't change. Regardless of what happens, the constant change in our world, God doesn't change. He's always the same. And so he's our anchor. And so where everybody else is in an uproar about all the things, good, bad, things that happen, then you and I have an anchor. And that they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I'm hoping that this video will be worth 1,000 words on this webpage. Hi, I'm Pastor Wright from Keystone Baptist Church. Thank you for taking the time to visit our website today. Unfortunately, words on a page can only do so much to give you a feel for a church. There's no substitute for actually visiting. You probably already know that. But sometimes walking into a strange place with people you don't know is a little intimidating. That's why we've created this video. I want to give you a visual tour of what to expect when you're our guest here at church. When you arrive at the church, you can park in either the front or the back parking lot, but you'll probably end up parking in the back parking lot because there are more spaces here. From that parking lot, look for the wide sidewalk that'll lead you into the West Wing. The West Wing doors will take you into a hallway that'll take you to the foyer, and in that foyer is an information desk. There'll be somebody at that information desk that can help you get your children to Sunday school, the nursery, or wherever else you need. Don't forget, anytime during the process of coming in, our church family will be happy to help you. Just ask somebody. They'll point you in the right direction. Families are always concerned about the care for their children. When you arrive here at the information desk, one of our church members will either be behind this desk or right outside the desk. They'll help you get to the right place. On Wednesday night, we have our Patch Club, Keystone Kids, and Royalty Club. Those young people will go to the different areas, and then the adults will be here in the auditorium for the Bible study. Now, for those of you who have young children, our nursery is down the hallway on the east wing. As you go down that hallway, you'll find that there are two doors. If you go to the last door, there's a procedure for picking up and dropping off your child. When you pick up and drop off your child, our nursery workers will give you some information, and they'll answer your questions for you. Those workers rotate from service to service under the direction of Mrs. Skidmore. Now, I know, because I'm the father of 3 children, that the last thing you want to hear is your child crying when you leave. But that's a normal thing. When you leave the nursery, you'll be given one of these. It is a parent pass, and it's a pager. If our staff cannot get your child settled down, or if they need you during the service for any reason, they can page you anywhere in our building. Rest assured, making your children feel comfortable is one of our highest priorities. Our Sunday morning service begins at 10 o'clock with traditional hymns, Bible reading, prayer, and then a Bible-based message. When I get up to begin the message, I will dismiss those who are 3 years old through the 3rd grade to go to our junior church program. They'll go out the auditorium and into the foyer. Our workers will meet them there and take them to their classrooms. The service begins at 10 o'clock, and it'll go to between 11:15 and 11:30. When the service is over, the junior church workers will bring the young people back up and bring them directly to you. The same thing is true for Sunday night, except Sunday nights there is no junior church, and our young people sit in the church service with their families. There's a lot more that I would like to show you, but we're about out of time. We'll put some more clips at the end of this video if you have time to watch them. But you've seen the basic layout of our church and the services. I'll be happy to give you a longer tour in person. Thanks again for visiting our website. I look forward to visiting with you in person.
hoping that this video will be worth 1,000 words on this webpage. Hi, I'm Pastor Wright from Keystone Baptist Church. Thank you for taking the time to visit our website today. Unfortunately, words on a page can only do so much to give you a feel for a church. There's no substitute for actually visiting. You probably already know that. But sometimes walking into a strange place with people you don't know is a little intimidating. That's why we've created this video. I want to give you a visual tour of what to expect when you're our guest here at church. When you arrive at the church, you can park in either the front or the back parking lot, but you'll probably end up parking in the back parking lot because there are more spaces here. From that parking lot, look for the wide sidewalk that'll lead you into the west wing. The west wing doors will take you into a hallway that'll take you to the foyer, and in that foyer is an information desk. There'll be somebody at that information desk that can help you get your children to Sunday school, the nursery, or wherever else you need. Don't forget, anytime during the process of coming in, our church family will be happy to help you. Just ask somebody. They'll point you in the right direction. Families are always concerned about the care for their children. When you arrive here at the information desk, one of our church members will either be behind this desk or right outside the desk. They'll help you get to the right place. On Wednesday night, we have our Patch Club, Keystone Kids, and Royalty Club. Those young people will go to the different areas, and then the adults will be here in the auditorium for the Bible study. Now, for those of you who have young children, our nursery is down the hallway on the east wing. As you go down that hallway, you'll find that there are two doors. If you go to the last door, there's a procedure for picking up and dropping off your child. When you pick up and drop off your child, our nursery workers will give you some information and they'll answer your questions for you. Those workers rotate from service to service under the direction of Mrs. Skidmore. Now, I know, because I'm the father of 3 children, that the last thing you want to hear is your child crying when you leave. But that's a normal thing. When you leave the nursery, you'll be given one of these. It is a parent pass, and it's a pager. If our staff cannot get your child
Wednesday night, we're going to start off our service with a few songs, and as usual, we'd like to remind us as to why we sing. Why do we praise God? I mean, we all know He tells us to in His Word, so maybe that's wow. So He tells us to praise Him in His Word. We know that. But sometimes I think it gets lost as we get in the routine, things like that. So I've just been thinking, and the only verse that could come to mind today was just as I looked at the songs we're going to sing tonight, I was just looking at the theme, and I think it's basically trust. And the verses that come to mind are Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. A lot of you probably know these, but I just thought I'd share them with you, because if I could try and pull singing out of you, okay, whatever. But if God pulls that singing out of you and it's from your heart, then it's going to be something that's honoring to Him, and that's the whole reason we're here. So Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 tells us that we can trust God and that we should trust God. And it says, "Trust in the Lord with all thy heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths." And so as you think about that passage, about what God is saying to you there, He's saying, trust Him. He's saying, trust me. I can take care of this, so you can trust me with everything. We trust Him for our salvation, so we can certainly trust Him with our lives. So think about, as you sing tonight, as we sing about this certain theme, that you just think about how we can be trusting God, and how you've done that in the past, and you've seen how it's fleshed itself out, and how God has blessed you because of that. So we'll start off with song number 319. Song number 319 is "Just As I Am." Just As I Am, we'll sing the first, the third, and the fifth. The first verse, the third verse, and the fifth verse. Just as I am, without one plea, but that thy blood was shed for me, and that thou bidst me come to thee, O Lamb of God. I come, I come. Just as I am, though tossed about with many
believe.